to meet over climate change issues. And on the campaign trail once again, Kenya Kwanza is set to bring the vote hunt to Nairobi County. Azimio, on the other hand, is also expected to take their campaigns to Garissa County, while Raila and Ruto are expected to mount parallel vote counts. And of course, that is what is on the front page of the Daily Nation. And at this point, I'd like us now to get to the newspaper review, and I will be moving to that side. And joining me this morning, in fact, for this newspaper review is Alan Olingo, news editor on our other side, on the print edition. Thank you so much, and good morning. Welcome to AM Live.
Good morning.
Indeed. So I think we'll just begin with the Daily Nation. Of course, on the front page, Ruto, Raila to mount parallel vote counts. And it talks about, of course, the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission's remarks, I think, on Friday, which has allowed all interested parties, including political outfits and the media, to run their own tallies to this year's general election at polling stations, in a move hailed as great for transparency and accountability, but one which is also fraught with dangers. What do you think about this, Alan?
I mean, for the first time in these elections, we've seen IEBC allow access by not only political parties, right, media and civil societies. They'll have access to the papers, the returning papers at the polling stations and also constituency level.
Right.
The only rider that we need to put out there is, as much as they'll have this access from the back end, they'll do their own reviews and tallying. They are not allowed by law to declare
the results.
The results. So that remains still the mandate of IEBC.
Right.
And for us, that is why this is important. You remember both in 2013 and 2017, both camps, and especially the Raila Odinga-led camp, CORD and also NASA in 2017 attempted this, but they were not successful because IEBC stood its grounds then. But this time around, IEBC chairman Wafula Chebukati has given the green light for them to access these electoral tallying materials, right, once IEBC uploads them on the back end. So this is important.
But so you mean, I mean, in terms of accountability, you think this will sort of help the situation? Exactly, this will help because, I mean, we are going to see these parties and also media and other interested parties using IEBC's own data to collect the results. Right. So whatever IEBC will announce must, in a way, now tally with what the political parties will be having. So this should have offer clarity in terms of just looking at the numbers so that people don't have different numbers. Yes. All right. Let's now just a little bit move on as well, still on the front page of the Daily Nation. Giving me a bit of a hard time here. How war between agencies gave bad leaders a free pass as the IBC and the EACC flexed muscles and shot letters and advisories at each other. Tainted politicians ended up scamming their way into the polls. That is on page 13 of the Daily Nation. And inside the pages, of course, on the second page, mystery in killing of 4 Dependers families feud over remains, a dispute, of course, erupting at the city mortuary over the remains of Omeka, one of the victims. That's inside the Daily Nation. Still on the Daily Nation, body of Siaya miner found after 205 days. And this was, in fact, our top story yesterday evening. I don't know, Alan, if you saw, but, you know, this is after a very frantic search that lasted 205 days. Isn't that too long for, you know, the agencies that were involved?
I mean, even just for the recovery, when you look at what really happened, we saw the agencies give up probably by week 2. That was 14 days after the incident. And you can clearly see the ingenuity of the miners as they really wanted to give the family closure. So they took it upon themselves to dig a parallel tunnel as they sought to find one of their own. I think this is laudable and also just an indication of how agencies work. The family has been camping there. They refuse to bury, as per the Luo customs, a banana stem
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So, well, also away from that story, we have, I think this was what was part of the headlines. Inside Ruto Raila vote count plan as IBC agrees to parallel voting. And I think we've just mentioned that a little bit. Raila Odinga as well, still on that page, lower the entry grades for trainee teachers from Northeastern. An earlier push to lower entry grades was also rejected by the government, I think, if you can remember that. Odinga says training of more local tutors would help bridge the biting shortage experienced in the region. What do you think of this remark here by Raila Odinga for the people of Wajir?
I'm sort of conflicted because one, I want to understand where Mr. Odinga is coming from.
Right.
Possibly because the challenges that Northeastern has traditionally have with the education. We've also seen in the last few years TSC and teachers and also teachers unions having a tiff over posting of non-Northeastern educated teachers or Northeastern locals within the region. So I'm sort of looking at Odinga's pronouncement as trying to offer a bridge, in the sense that he wants to have more teachers who are indigenous.
But how feasible is it really? How feasible is it? Or is it just one of those campaign promises?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. I'm a little bit conflicted because when you look at the infrastructure, the education infrastructure, just from the ECDE level up until primary and college level, it's a challenge for Northeastern. So I don't think solving the problem from the top might offer that solution. You know, I think just finding a different way, because other regions will also, have a Me Too moment.
Because there's so many dynamics into this particular issue, from security matters to know the state of education itself holistically in that part of the country.
Exactly. And that's what I meant when I said it's very conflicting. And other regions might also have the Me Too moment and say, hey, we also have these unique challenges. Can't we also be considered, given that the other region is being considered? Yeah. So it's going to be challenging.
All right. Well, away from that, still on decision 2022, Kenya Kwanza president has abandoned Raila in Mount Kenya. The DP says high cost of living is a result of the handshake that frustrated the Big Four agenda. Of course, the Kenya Kwanza leaders are now claiming that President Uhuru Kenyatta has abandoned Azimio la Umoja on Kenya flag bearer Raila Odinga, despite promising to help him in the campaigns in central Kenya. So that's also another interesting dynamic in this. And, we've seen a lot of fodder for the political players here talking about President Uhuru Kenyatta's presence in the campaign trail. What do you make of it?
One, I'm not sure the president really promised that he's going to campaign for Odinga. I'm yet to see that on record. But I know, possibly from the analysis that we've been doing at the Daily Nation, it's very tactical probably by the Azimio team, because they really don't want to make this election about, Uhuru third term via Mr. Odinga. So possibly that could give an indication why he's kept off. But again, I think for Kenya Kwanza, that is one of the things they really wanted, and now they are clinging on the fact that he is not there for Mr. Odinga.
Because I've heard the argument that, having the president, campaigning for Raila Odinga sort of like hurt Odinga's chances in the campaign trail.
I mean, possibly it could. I am not a trained political analyst, but I mean, just from the analysis that we do, it could, because when we look at the cost of living, when you look at the issues right now, it might turn to be a vote against Mr. Kenyatta, and that would definitely hurt Odinga's campaigns.
All right. Yeah. So I guess we'll delve deeper into this with our panelists this morning. Also now, just very quickly as well, as we brush through the Daily Nation, Gisheru case is Ruto in ICC danger once again. From your standpoint as a news editor, this story here piques a lot of interest. And, having the deputy president as a key political player in this election, what new things are we looking at forward to this case?
I mean, the prosecution is doing their closing arguments over the Gisheru case. And of course, at the center of Gisheru case is just witness tampering.
Right.
And we all understand the termination of the deputy president case was as a result of you know, lack of witnesses and evidence and all that. So the prosecutors have dug into Mr. Gisheru's phone records. They have access now to his bank records. They have oral testimonies and all that. So it will be very keen to look at really what comes out of this case and what this means for the deputy president. We also remember that when the ICC 3 judges terminated Mr. Ruto's case, it was very clear that it was not an acquittal.
Right.
And that is very important for this case, because should any other new material come, should the judges rule, depending on how they rule, it has a direct implication on what really happens on the Ruto's case and what the prosecutor can decide.
This is a very big issue.
It's still a big issue, especially the fact that we are around an election. We feel it's an important case that we still have to cover.
All right, fantastic. Okay, so just also very quickly, on the national front, COMESA watchdog to probe Toyota prices. And of course, this is with the investigation which will assess whether Toyota's sales and pricing model skewed competition in the regional market. Still on the Daily Nation, 1 killed, several others injured in Nairobi Expressway car pile-up. We don't have much time to get into that, but also let me just quickly take a look at the front page of the Business Daily. Raila family strikes deal in Fidel's property fight. And of course, the widow, Luam Getachew Bekele and Raila Odinga Jr. have been made joint administrators of the vast estate. So you can read up on that story on the Business Daily. Still inside the Business Daily, maybe just one more story. Defaults on state workers' housing loans hit 379 million. Well, moving away from the Business Daily, and what we have here is Taifa Leo, Kizaza Azimio, and this is for the Swahili readers. You can get more on Wajakoya Asisimua Magharibi. Why is that? That will be interesting to read. On the East African, Loliondo, government stands ground on the Ma vote. The relocation is closely coordinated by the Prime Minister's office through 5 line ministries, which are bearing all costs. Well, away from that, I'd just like us to also quickly take a look at the front page of The Standard. And danger ahead as free felons, and of course that's on free felons' key seats. The integrity question, vetting of candidates, turned out to be a big circus, leaving Kenya with the risk of populating vital institutions with tainted individuals, and the consequences could hurt the country unless voters act. That's on page 8, 9, and 10. I'd like to get, Alan, your thoughts on the same issue, the integrity question, which has become quite a big debate in the country in light of, the elections.
I mean, when you look at IEBC and the Election Management Act, they literally have to sort of enforce. But again, you look at the way our candidates and the aspirants have scattered around this issue. And it's actually very disappointing, because from the story that we have in the Daily Nation today, the agency is fighting. You see EACC sending letters to IEBC. IEBC saying, these guys have not, a lot of these guys have not exhausted, the legal mechanisms. Some of them have appeal cases and all that. Some are convicted felons. We have those leaders who are convicted. And the interpretation becomes different. EACC is interpreting it differently. IEBC is also interpreting it differently. Then there's the other link that sort of everyone is saying is now the weak link, judiciary. Everyone is armed with court orders and all that. And IEBC has to respect that. So I think the interpretation of that Integrity Act should be relooked at, so that we sort of avoid this in the future. It's something that has become very pronounced this year. Because of these elections, but hopefully by 2027 this should be cleaned up, so that we have these guys barred as early as possible. And
maybe interestingly to just note on the first paragraph of the Standard, 2 months ago, Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i sounded an alarm that intelligence reports showed that unusually high number of suspected criminals were planning to contest seats in the August 9th election.
He spoke of the possibility of, listen to this, up to 40% of elective seats being won by criminals relying on massive bribery and suspect funds. Is this a little bit too dramatic, 40%?
I don't think it's it's dramatic. I mean, just look at the leaders who've offered themselves for candidates in various elective seats. A lot of them have integrity and ethical questions around them,
right.
you know. And it was interesting when the CS was speaking with the diplomatic community, when he said, you know, we are going to have leaders who belong to the wash-wash community.
Right.
You know, we have leaders who have questionable characters,
right.
People who've, you know, been taken to court over various integrity-related issues.
Right.
So I don't think it's alarmist. I think it's something of concern, but again, we know the Kenyan voter.
Right.
This might not be really the biggest headache for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
When it comes to this reason, sometimes becomes a challenge for a lot of us.
All right.
Yeah.
And maybe also just quickly, bang is illegal. Don't mislead the youth. Matiang'i warns politicians. Still in the Standard, police residents differ over cause of the death of 5. And also very quickly, Ruto vows to revive textile industry, boost exports as the new government will reopen Kenya-Somalia border. Raila promises. Well, that's what's on the Standard, and we don't have much time again to look at the, maybe just quickly on the Star. Revealed PSC row over civil servants pay, and of course SRC, I beg your pardon, wanted to set the retirement benefits for state and public officials, and PSC argues it should restrict itself to its advisory role. So that's on the front page of the Star. Thanks, Alan Olingo, news editor on from the Daily Nation. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning.
Thank you very much.
So that's it on the newspaper review. We will be taking a short break. When we come back, we're getting into the conversation with our panelists. Stay with us.